Alex's small studio apartment was cluttered with sound equipment, old microphones, headphones, and a computer setup that seemed too powerful for the space. He was a dedicated sound engineer, and his latest obsession was binaural beats, those audio tracks that can supposedly alter your brainwaves and mood. Jamie, his longtime friend, had a curious, creative mind and was always looking for the next big idea. "What if," Jamie proposed one day, "we combined storytelling with your binaural beats? Think about it, an experimental podcast where we not only tell a story but make our listeners feel it." Alex was intrigued. They got to work immediately, selecting a calming narrative for their pilot episode. When they tested the initial cut on a small group, the feedback was astonishing. "I felt so relaxed," one tester commented. "It was like the story was happening in a dream." Buoyed by the positive responses, Alex and Jamie officially launched their podcast, Resonance. The success of their pilot episode took both Alex and Jamie by surprise. Within a week, Resonance had thousands of downloads, and their inboxes were flooded with feedback. Many lauded the unique experience, claiming they had never felt so immersed in a story. However, nestled amongst the glowing reviews were a handful of messages that caught Alex's eye. Several listeners described an unexpected phenomenon, fleeting visions of a shadowy figure while immersed in the binaural beats. "It's probably just a coincidence," Jamie speculated. "Maybe it's a side effect, a shared psychological response." Alex wasn't convinced. The descriptions were too similar. A tall, obscure silhouette, always lurking at the edge of their vision, but never fully in view. Curiosity piqued. They decided to mention these occurrences in their next episode, asking listeners to share more about any unusual experiences. They couldn't have anticipated the floodgate they'd just opened. Resonance quickly became a phenomenon not just for its unique storytelling approach, but also for the inexplicable experiences listeners reported. More and more feedback poured in, all detailing the haunting presence of the shadowy figure during episodes. One listener, Clara, described her experience. "It always starts as a whisper, soft and unintelligible, gradually growing louder. And then from the corner of my eye I see him, standing still, watching. When I try to focus, he vanishes." To understand better, Alex and Jamie invited some of these listeners for interviews on their next episode. The tales were strikingly similar, from the figure's appearance to the emotional weight each person felt, an overwhelming blend of curiosity and dread. During one of these sessions, a listener named Mark said, "The figure, it whispered a date to me, a date from the past. I looked it up. It's the day my grandfather died." The revelation sent chills down Jamie's spine. Alex, though skeptical, couldn't help but feel that they were onto something unprecedented, and to understand it fully, he decided to immerse himself in their podcast's binaural beats overnight. Alex prepped his room for the night's experiment. Headphones in place, he pressed play and allowed the binaural beats of their podcast to wash over him. As the night deepened, his consciousness wavered between reality and the dreamlike world the beats evoked. In this semi-lucid state, he encountered the shadowy figure. Tall, featureless, but more defined than the blurry accounts from listeners. It stood in the distance, and as Alex tried to approach, it remained frustratingly out of reach. But the whispers, that was the difference. They were clearer, more focused, and he could discern a date and a location. September 15th, 1968. Rothman Auditorium. Startled awake by the morning light, Alex jotted down the details, his hands trembling. A quick online search revealed the truth about the date and location. Rothman Auditorium had burned down on September 15th, 1968, claiming several lives during a science convention. Diving deeper, Alex discovered a scientist known for experimenting with audio frequencies had been one of the victims. His work, though not widely recognized, revolved around the theory that certain sound waves could reach beyond our world, tapping into memories, emotions, and possibly the afterlife. Sharing this with Jamie, both felt an unsettling mix of excitement and trepidation. They realized their experiment might have accidentally tapped into frequencies that resonated with events and memories from the past. As Alex and Jamie delved deeper into the history of Rothman Auditorium and the mysterious sound scientist, they uncovered a series of archived interviews and notes. Among them was Dr. Leonard Grayson, a pioneer in the realm of sonic research, who had been presenting his latest findings at the auditorium on that fateful day. The crux of Dr. Grayson's research was the belief that sound could serve as a bridge between the living and the dead. While many contemporaries had dismissed his theories as pseudoscience, his detailed notes painted a picture of a man on the cusp of a breakthrough. A reel-to-reel tape labeled Final Experiment particularly caught their attention. Playing it, they heard Dr. Grayson's voice. "If my calculations are correct, this frequency will allow us a clear connection to those who've passed. It's a way to remember, to communicate." The tape was filled with a unique set of frequencies, unlike any binaural beats they had encountered before. Comparing these with their podcast's beats, they realized they had inadvertently mirrored parts of Dr. Grayson's experimental frequencies. However, the tape ended abruptly, filled with the chaotic noise of the fire alarms and panic. Capturing the tragic moment, Rothman Auditorium was consumed by flames. Haunted by the discovery, Alex and Jamie pondered their next steps. They now held a piece of sonic history that might bridge the gap between realms. They faced a choice: explore further or pull back from the edge of the unknown. Filled with a sense of responsibility and curiosity, Alex and Jamie decided to pursue Dr. Grayson's work. They meticulously replicated the scientist's experiment, combining it with their own understanding of binaural beats. For their next podcast episode, they included the unique set of frequencies from Dr. Grayson's tape, masked within a new narrative. They added a disclaimer, informing listeners of its experimental nature and the possible effects. Within hours of the episode's release, feedback flooded in. It was more intense than anything they had received before. Many listeners spoke of not just seeing the shadowy figure of Dr. Grayson, but they also interacted with lost loved ones. Heartwarming reunions, tearful apologies, and unresolved farewells played out across the world. However, as the days passed, a more troubling pattern emerged. The barrier between the living and the dead seemed to be thinning beyond the confines of the podcast. People reported ghostly apparitions and interactions outside of their listening sessions. The world was slowly being immersed in echoes from the past. Alex received a distressed call from Clara, a previous interviewee. "It's not just during the podcast anymore," she whispered, fear evident in her voice. "They're here all the time. The dead, they're among us." Realizing the gravity of their actions, Jamie and Alex grappled with guilt and panic. They needed to find a solution, and fast. The world had changed. Reports from all corners spoke of spirits becoming more tangible, their presence felt even without the influence of resonance. Streets were haunted by echoes of the past, and places with tragic histories became hotspots for spectral activity. Alex and Jamie urgently consulted experts in the field of parapsychology and sound engineering. Dr. Lydia Warren, a leading figure in sonic anomalies, presented a theory. Dr. Grayson's frequencies didn't just open a door, they shattered the boundary. If we don't act fast, this merging will become irreversible. Amidst the chaos, the shadowy figure of Dr. Grayson, now more defined, appeared to Alex in a dream. Contrary to his ominous presence in earlier encounters, he seemed desperate. "My experiments were never meant to reach this scale," he conveyed. "But together, we can mend the barrier." With Dr. Grayson's guidance from beyond, Alex, Jamie, and Dr. Warren worked tirelessly to uncover a counterfrequency. This new sound needed to realign the realms, pushing the spirits back while anchoring the living in the present. As days turned into nights, a breakthrough emerged, a harmonic resonance that seemed to counteract the original frequencies. With no time to lose, Alex and Jamie broadcasted the counterfrequency on an emergency episode of Resonance. Across the world, listeners tuned in, hoping to restore balance. The effect was almost immediate. Spirits, once clear and present, began to fade, their forms turning ethereal. The weight in the air lifted, replaced by a serene calmness. Among the vanishing apparitions, Dr. Grayson appeared one last time to Alex. "Thank you," he whispered, gratitude and relief evident in his spectral eyes. "My work, while well-intentioned, was flawed. I'm glad you could rectify my mistakes." As the last remnants of the spectral world vanished, a collective sigh of relief resonated across the globe. The balance between the living and the dead had been restored. With the crisis averted, Alex and Jamie decided to halt their podcast. Resonance. The risks of delving into the unknown, they realized, were too great. Life returned to a semblance of normalcy for the world. But for Alex and Jamie, the events left a profound impact. The fame and scrutiny that followed them were immense. Some hailed them as heroes for restoring balance, while others blamed them for the chaos in the first place. Jamie, grappling with the weight of their actions, decided to take a break from the city, seeking solitude in nature. Alex, on the other hand, remained in the urban maze, trying to make sense of everything. One evening, as Alex sat alone in his studio reminiscing, he heard a faint echo, a residual whisper from the frequencies they had used. Curiosity piqued. He played back some of their older episodes. It was then he noticed it, a soft background hum, barely discernible, present in every episode since they first used Dr. Grayson's frequencies. Isolating it, he played the sound on loop and felt a strange sense of calm and connection. He reached out to Dr. Lydia Warren to analyze the sound. Her findings were surprising. "It's not a frequency connecting to the other side," she explained. "Instead, it's a harmonic resonance that connects the living. It fosters empathy and understanding." The revelation was enlightening. Alex and Jamie, realizing the potential of this newfound frequency, decided to relaunch Resonance, this time with a focus on fostering human connection in a world often divided. The final episode closed with Alex's voice, soft and hopeful. "In every echo of the past, there's a lesson for the future. Let's resonate together, in harmony."